The Coffee King. How Howard Schultz built Starbucks from nothing. From nothing to a name the world knows. Hello, my name is Howard Schultz. You may know me today as the man behind Starbucks, one of the most famous coffee brands in the world. But what you don't know is where I came from. I didn't grow up with money. I didn't have a famous name. I didn't go to private schools or have connections. I grew up in the projects, a name used in the United States for public housing. These are buildings built by the government to help families who are very poor. The apartments are small. The buildings are old. The neighborhoods are often filled with struggle. That was my home. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, in 1953. Our apartment was small and cold. The furniture was secondhand. My dad worked different jobs, but none of them paid well. One winter, he fell on the ice and hurt his leg. Because he had no health insurance, he lost his job. No support, no help, just pain and silence. I was only 7 years old, but I'll never forget the look on my father's face. He felt like he had failed. Not just himself, but his family. That image stayed with me my whole life. And in that moment, I made a quiet promise to myself. One day, I will create something better. A place where people are treated with respect. Where work has dignity. My mother was my biggest supporter. We didn't have much, but she gave me something more valuable than money: belief. She believed that if I studied, worked hard, and never gave up, I could build a better life. And I started to believe it too. At night, when I couldn't sleep, I dreamed. Not about being rich. I didn't even know what that really meant. I dreamed about getting out. About building something. About being somebody. My escape was basketball. I wasn't the best player, but I practiced hard. Every day. Even in the cold. Even with holes in my shoes. Basketball gave me discipline. It kept me away from trouble. It gave me purpose. And finally, it gave me a scholarship, a special kind of help to pay for college. I became the first person in my family to go to university. I studied at Northern Michigan University. It was far from home, and I had no idea what to expect. I had no money, no car, no expensive clothes. I worked part-time jobs to survive. Sometimes I even sold my own blood to pay for food. But I was happy, because I had a chance. I lived in small apartments with other students. I shared space, meals, even blankets. But I also shared dreams. I started to imagine a life where I didn't just survive, I could create. After graduation, I moved to New York and got a job at Xerox, a big company. For the first time, I wore a suit and tie. I learned about sales, marketing, and business. I started to think bigger. But something inside me still felt empty. I didn't want to spend my life selling copy machines. I wanted to build something meaningful. Something that mattered to people. That's when coffee entered my life. I moved to Seattle and started working at a small company called Starbucks. At the time, Starbucks didn't sell drinks. They sold high-quality coffee beans and machines to make coffee at home. But there was something special about that little company. The people cared. About the product. About the customer. About doing things the right way. One day, they sent me to Italy. And that trip changed everything. In Milan, I saw coffee bars on every street. People weren't just drinking coffee, they were living with it. Talking, laughing, relaxing. It was part of their culture. The baristas knew their customers by name. People didn't just come for the coffee. They came for the connection. And right then, I had a vision. What if we bring this coffee culture to America? What if Starbucks becomes not just a store, but a third place, not home, not work, but something special in between? I came back full of excitement. I told the Starbucks owners my idea. But they said no. We don't want to run cafes. We sell beans, not drinks. I was disappointed, but not defeated. My vision was too strong. So I made a decision. I would leave. I would find people who believed in me. I would start my own coffee shop based on the Italian experience. It was a risk. I had no money, no rich family, but I had one thing: belief. And belief, when combined with hard work and a clear vision, can change the world. The boy from the projects. I was just a kid when I started to understand that life wasn't fair. Our family lived in a small apartment in the Bayview housing projects in Brooklyn, New York. In the United States, the projects are public housing buildings built by the government for families with very low income. The apartments are cheap, the buildings are crowded, and the people living there often struggle just to survive. That was the world I was born into. Our apartment had no carpet, thin walls, and a tiny kitchen. I shared a room with my younger brother and sister. We didn't have money for new clothes or toys. Most of our furniture came from someone else's trash. But my mom kept our place clean, spotless. That was her way of holding on to dignity, even when the world outside was full of broken promises. My dad, Fred Schultz, was a hard man. Not because he wanted to be, but because life made him that way. He had many jobs over the years: a truck driver, a factory worker, a delivery man. But none of those jobs gave him health insurance, or job security, or respect. One day, he slipped on a patch of ice and broke his ankle. He couldn't work, and just like that, he lost his job. No support, no money, no protection. He sat on the couch, angry, ashamed, and silent. And I just watched. I was only 7, but I saw everything. That was the moment that changed me. I remember thinking, if I ever get the chance, I'll build a company where people are treated like people, where no one loses everything because of one bad day. That promise became the fire inside me. Other kids in the projects talked about getting out, but most didn't. Some joined gangs. Some dropped out of school. Many got stuck in the same cycle: poverty, pain, survival. But I had something different. I had a dream, not a clear one. I didn't know what I wanted to be. But I knew what I didn't want. I didn't want to be invisible. I didn't want to live paycheck to paycheck. I didn't want to feel powerless like my father. My mother believed in 2 things: cleanliness and education. She would scrub our floors until they shined. She would iron my shirt even if it was torn. And she always said, "Howard, if you want to change your life, go to school. Learn everything you can." So I did. I studied. I read books from the public library. I stayed away from trouble. I listened. I asked questions. I worked hard. But I also found something else: basketball. On the court, I was free. I wasn't the poor kid. I wasn't the boy from the projects. I was just a player, a teammate, a fighter. Basketball taught me how to push myself. It taught me how to lose and keep going. It gave me discipline, and eventually, it gave me a way out. I got a sports scholarship to Northern Michigan University, the first person in my entire family to go to college. That moment was bigger than just me. It was hope for my whole family. College was hard. I didn't know anyone. I had no idea how to act in college. I didn't have the money for books, meals, or clothes. I worked every job I could find: cleaning floors, selling newspapers, even selling my blood for $10 to buy food. But I never complained. I told myself, this is the price of the dream. Pay it now so you don't pay for it forever. I lived in tiny apartments with roommates. I studied late into the night. I learned how to survive. And slowly, I started to grow. More than anything, I wanted to build a life that had meaning. Not just money, not just success, but purpose. I didn't want to become rich for the sake of being rich. I wanted to create something better than what I had known. I wanted to change what it meant to be a worker, a leader, a human being. And even back then, the idea of connection mattered to me. When people feel seen, heard, and respected, they rise. Maybe I didn't have the words for it yet, but I knew what it felt like to be ignored. And I never wanted anyone else to feel that way, not in my future company, and not in life. So I kept pushing. Every exam I passed, every job I took, every door I knocked on. I wasn't just chasing money. I was chasing that little boy in the projects, the one who made a promise to himself while his dad sat in silence. And I wasn't going to let him down. College, coffee, and New York lessons. When I left Brooklyn for college, I didn't just leave behind the projects, I left behind the world I knew. I arrived at Northern Michigan University with no money, no connections, and no idea how to fit in. Most of the students there came from middle-class families. Their parents dropped them off in nice cars. They had warm jackets, new shoes, and confidence. I had a duffel bag, a pair of worn-out sneakers, and a scholarship. I lived in a tiny dorm room with a roommate I'd never met before. I worked in the cafeteria. I sold blood at the local clinic for $10 a pint. I saved every dollar I could. And when I wasn't working or studying, I was thinking about my family back home, still in the projects, still struggling. I couldn't let them down. I couldn't let myself down. College wasn't easy, but it changed my life. For the first time, I met people who talked about business, ideas, and vision. I didn't even know what entrepreneurship meant at first, but I started to learn. I started to dream bigger. One professor told me, "Howard, you don't have to come from money to become someone who matters. You just need to see what others don't." That sentence stayed with me. After college, I moved to New York City, not because I had a plan, but because it felt like the place where dreams happen. I got a job at Xerox. It was a good company, stable, structured, respected. I learned sales techniques, how to talk to people, how to present ideas. I wore a cheap suit and carried a fake leather briefcase, but I walked like I belonged. I watched the top performers. I studied their habits. I asked questions. I practiced speaking clearly, listening carefully, and building trust. Those lessons would help me for the rest of my life. But something didn't feel right. I wasn't excited. I was just working. I didn't want to sell copy machines forever. I wanted to build something of my own. Something with heart. That's when I saw an ad for a small company in Seattle. The company was called Starbucks. They weren't big. They didn't sell coffee drinks. They sold high-quality beans and espresso machines. But something about the company caught my attention. They weren't trying to be the biggest. They were trying to be the best. They cared about quality, origin, and the customer experience. I liked that. So I sent in my resume. I called. I followed up. And finally, I got the job. I left New York and flew to Seattle. I didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of something huge. Seattle was different from New York. Smaller, quieter, and always rainy. But Starbucks was alive with passion. The people there loved what they did. They talked about coffee like it was art. I started in marketing and operations. I visited stores. I met customers. I listened to what people liked, and what they didn't. One day, something unusual happened. They sent me on a trip to Italy. That trip changed my life. In Milan, I saw espresso bars everywhere. Not big restaurants, small, cozy cafes where people came not just to drink coffee, but to connect. People stood at the bar. They sipped espresso. They laughed, talked, relaxed. It wasn't about caffeine. It was about community. The baristas knew their customers. There was a relationship, a rhythm, a warmth. And I thought to myself, why don't we have this in America? Why isn't coffee an experience? That's when the vision hit me. Bring the Italian coffeehouse culture to the United States. But not just copy it, build something better. A third place. Not home, not work, something in between. Somewhere people could feel comfortable, seen, connected. I flew back to Seattle bursting with ideas. I walked into the office and said, we can build something amazing. We can create a new kind of coffee experience in America. But the owners of Starbucks didn't agree. We're not interested in becoming a cafe, they said. We sell beans, not drinks. I was crushed, but I didn't give up. I knew what I saw in Italy. I knew what I felt. And I wasn't going to let someone else's fear stop me from building my dream. So I took the biggest risk of my life. I left Starbucks. I decided to raise money, to find investors, to build my own company based on the idea of Italian coffee culture. I had no experience running a business. No rich backers, just passion and persistence. Some people laughed. Some people said I was crazy. Americans won't pay $3 for a cup of coffee, they said. You're dreaming too big. But that's what made it worth chasing. Because I wasn't just selling coffee. I was selling belonging. I was offering a moment of calm. I was building a new kind of brand. One based on empathy, quality, and human connection. Looking back, I'm glad the Starbucks owners said no. Because that no became the reason I built something bigger than all of us imagined. Sometimes, a closed door is not a failure. It's a redirection, a vision bigger than coffee. The year was 1985. I had just left Starbucks to build something on my own. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. All I had was a vision, a powerful idea that wouldn't leave my mind. I saw something in Italy that most people didn't notice. Coffee wasn't just a drink. It was a ritual, a moment of connection, a daily pause in a busy life. And I thought, why not bring that to America? Why not build coffee shops that make people feel something? But believing in a vision is one thing. Building it is another. I needed money. I needed support. I needed people who believed in me. I started meeting with investors. I told them my dream. A place where people come to relax. A space between home and work. A community built around a simple cup of coffee. Some said yes. Most said no. Howard, they said, coffee is just coffee. People won't pay that much for a drink. You're dreaming too big. But that didn't stop me. I didn't need everyone to believe. I just needed enough. I raised $1.6 million. It wasn't easy. I talked to over 200 people. Many said no, but each rejection made me stronger. I opened my first coffee shop. It was small. It was simple, but it had soul. We didn't just serve drinks. We greeted every customer by name. We played music. We taught people about coffee. We smiled. We created moments. And slowly, people started to notice. Customers came not just for the caffeine, but for the feeling. It became a habit, then a lifestyle, then a culture. People told their friends. New locations opened. The idea spread, city by city, one cup at a time. And then, something incredible happened. In 1987, the original Starbucks owners decided to sell the company. They were tired. They didn't want to grow. They didn't see what I saw. I saw the future. So I made a bold move. I bought Starbucks. With the help of investors, I took control of the brand I had once worked for. But I wasn't just buying a company. I was buying a dream. And now, I could make it real. We combined my vision with the Starbucks name. We redesigned the stores. We expanded the menu. We trained staff to offer more than service, to offer warmth. Our mission was simple: to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. Growth was slow at first, then steady, then fast. In just a few years, Starbucks went from a small regional brand to a national name. Then, we went global. But through it all, I never forgot why we started. This wasn't about coffee. It was about people. I remembered my father, who lost his job because he had no benefits. That became my inspiration. At Starbucks, we gave health insurance, even to part-time employees. We offered stock options, a chance to own a piece of the company. We called our employees partners, not workers. Because they weren't just doing a job, they were building something with us. That decision wasn't cheap, but it was right. And something amazing happened. Because we treated our partners well, they treated customers well. Because customers were happy, they kept coming back. Because we cared, people cared back. Empathy became our strategy. Respect became our advantage. We trained our teams to listen, to smile, to care. We didn't teach customer service. We taught human connection. And that's why Starbucks worked. Not because of the logo. Not because of the drinks. Because of the experience. Years passed. Stores opened all over the world: Japan, China, Europe, the Middle East. But the mission stayed the same. Every cup we served was a chance to connect. Every smile was a small act of leadership. Every store was a small community. People asked me, "Howard, how did you do it?" And I always said, it wasn't about coffee. It was about what coffee represents. Coffee was just the tool. The real product was trust. That's the lesson I want you to remember. You don't have to be the smartest, richest, or most talented person in the room. But if you have a vision, if you work hard, if you care about people, you can build something that matters. Just like I did. The risk: leaving security behind. Before Starbucks became a global brand, before the green logo meant anything, there was a moment of truth. A moment where I had to make a decision that scared me more than anything before. Do I stay where it's safe? Or do I take a chance on something no one else believes in? This chapter is about risk. At the time, I had a good job. I was working at Starbucks in marketing. I was respected. I was doing well. My future seemed secure. But I couldn't ignore the voice inside me. That voice kept saying, "There's more. There's something bigger. Don't settle." And I couldn't ignore the feeling I had after visiting Italy. In Milan, I had seen people connect over coffee in a way I had never seen in America. Coffee wasn't just a product, it was a moment, a human connection, a ritual of daily life. I came back to Seattle and told the Starbucks owners, we should create cafes. Not just sell beans. Let's sell the experience. But they said no. They were good people, smart people, but they were afraid. Afraid that it was too risky, too expensive, too different. They saw what Starbucks was. I saw what Starbucks could become. And so I stood at a crossroads. On one side, a stable paycheck, a growing company, a safe path. On the other side, uncertainty, rejection, the possibility of failure, but also the chance to build something meaningful. And that meant everything to me. I decided to leave. It was one of the hardest choices of my life. I had no guarantees, no safety net. I had a new wife, Sherry. We were starting our life together. And here I was, quitting my job to chase a dream that didn't make sense to most people. But she believed in me. "Howard," she said, "if you don't try, you'll never know." So I jumped. I started walking into investor meetings with nothing but passion and an idea. Some people listened, most didn't. They asked, why would anyone pay $3 for a cup of coffee? Why not just go to a diner? Isn't this just a European thing? I answered with heart. I painted the picture. I told the story. But rejection became my new normal. Over the next few months, I heard no more than 200 times. And every time I walked out of a meeting, I felt a little heavier. A little more tired. A little more afraid. But I kept going. Because even when the doors closed, the vision stayed open. Then finally, a break. A few people believed in me. Really believed. They saw the potential. Not just in the idea, but in the emotion behind it. In the way I talked about people, not just coffee. With their help, I raised $1.6 million. It was enough to open my first few stores. Enough to prove that this idea wasn't crazy. Enough to begin. We opened our first cafe in downtown Seattle. It was small. It had no fame, but it had a soul. We trained every barista to know the customers by name. To care. To smile. To ask, how's your day? To create more than coffee, to create comfort. And slowly, it worked. Hot beverage people started coming back. They brought their friends. They stayed longer, talked more, smiled more. They didn't come just for caffeine. They came for belonging. And I knew taking the risk was worth it. Not because we made money. Not because we grew fast. But because we were doing something that mattered. Taking the risk also taught me something deeper. When you step away from comfort, you discover courage. When you leave behind safety, you find purpose. When you lose the approval of the crowd, you meet your true self. That's the gift of risk. That's the price of vision. And I would pay it again and again. If you're listening to this, and you're standing at your own crossroads, ask yourself, what's scarier, failing, or never trying? Sometimes the greatest danger is not jumping, but staying stuck. I had no idea then that one cafe would grow into thousands. That one risk would change how the world drinks coffee. All I knew was this. I didn't want to spend my life wondering what if. And that was enough. Building a brand with a heart. The first Starbucks cafe opened. Then the second. Then the third. And slowly, the idea started to grow. People didn't just want coffee. They wanted consistency, warmth, and trust. They wanted a place that felt familiar, no matter where it was. And that meant we had to do more than sell drinks. We had to build a brand. But not just any brand. A brand with a heart. What does that mean? To me, it meant that Starbucks would not only stand for great coffee. It would stand for respect. For community. For something deeper. I didn't want to create just another business. I wanted to create a place where people mattered, customers, employees, and even strangers who just passed by the window. That's what building a brand with a heart is about. So how did we do it? It started with how we treated our partners. That's what we called our employees. We gave them health insurance, even if they only worked part-time. We gave them stock options, so they could own a piece of the company. We offered training, education, and opportunity. Because we believed that happy partners make happy customers. And we were right. Our baristas didn't just pour coffee. They remembered your name. They smiled at you. They noticed when you looked tired. They asked how your day was. They gave you something you didn't always get from the world: attention. That's where the magic was. People came to Starbucks because it felt different. Safe, clean, friendly, not perfect, but human. And the brand started to grow, not just in size, but in meaning. Every decision we made had to match our values. The music we played, the colors we used, the cups we handed out, the stories we told, everything had to say, you belong here. You matter. That message became our mission. We weren't just selling coffee. We were selling a moment of peace in a busy world, a tiny bit of order in the chaos. And people responded. They didn't just buy coffee. They shared it. They posted photos, wrote reviews, met friends, had first dates. Starbucks became part of their lives. And the brand became a symbol of quality, connection, and care. But none of that would have happened if we didn't lead with heart. I saw too many companies focused only on numbers, only on profit. They forgot that behind every transaction is a human being. And if you forget that, you lose. I told our team again and again, we're not in the coffee business serving people. We're in the people business serving coffee. That mindset changed everything. We trained every store manager to care deeply. Not just about performance, but about people. If someone was late, we asked why. If someone was struggling, we helped. If a store was having problems, we sent support, not blame. Because you don't build loyalty with rules. You build it with empathy. Here's a simple truth I learned. People may forget what you said. They may forget what you sold. But they'll never forget how you made them feel. And that became the heart of Starbucks. Every cup we handed over the counter was more than a drink. It was a message. We see you. We respect you. We're glad you're here. That's what made the brand grow. Not marketing, not advertising, not clever slogans, just consistent care. And here's the best part. When you build a brand with heart, you don't just gain customers. You gain fans. You gain trust. You gain something money can't buy, loyalty. To this day, whenever I walk into a Starbucks anywhere in the world, I feel proud. Not just because we're successful, but because people walk in, take a breath, and feel a little better. Even for just 5 minutes. That's what this was always about. Failures, fears, and the fight to continue. Every success story has a side people don't always see. Behind every strong brand, every smiling CEO, and every full coffee shop, there are problems, mistakes, and nights full of doubt. And I've had my share of all of them. People often imagine success as a straight line. You work hard, right pointing arrow, you get results, right pointing arrow, you become great. But in real life, it's more like this. You work hard. You get knocked down. You try again. You lose money. You fix the mistake. You grow a little. You fall again. And somehow, you keep going. That's the real fight. At Starbucks, there were times when we made bad decisions. We opened too many stores too quickly. We launched products people didn't love. We tried things that didn't feel like Starbucks. And we paid the price. Sales dropped. Customer trust was shaken. The brand started to feel too big, too corporate, too cold. And people noticed. That was one of my biggest fears. That we would lose the soul of Starbucks. That we would become just another company. I had built this brand on heart and connection, but now it was being run like a machine. And machines don't feel. In 2008, during the global financial crisis, everything got harder. People were spending less. Stores were empty. The company was losing money. And I had to make a decision. Should I step back and let others handle the problems? Or should I step back in and lead? I chose to return as CEO. Not because I wanted more power, but because I couldn't watch something I loved fall apart. I knew we had made mistakes. And I knew we could fix them. But we had to go back to the beginning. Back to the mission. Back to the heart. We closed hundreds of underperforming stores. We retrained thousands of baristas. We simplified the menu. We asked hard questions. And most importantly, we listened. To our partners. To our customers. To ourselves. One night, I walked into a Starbucks store unannounced. I ordered a drink. The barista didn't smile. The music was off. The store was messy. And I felt it. We were losing our way. So we hit pause. We shut down all Starbucks stores in America for one afternoon. Why? To retrain every barista in every store at the same time. People laughed. You're closing your stores? In the middle of a crisis? Yes, because we had to remind ourselves and the world what we stood for. And it worked. That decision became a signal. We're not a company that forgets who we are. Slowly, trust returned, sales improved, the culture healed, and we learned a powerful lesson. Sometimes, to move forward, you have to stop and remember why you started. Failure doesn't mean the end. It just means it's time to adjust, refocus, and grow stronger. That's what we did. We learned to be more careful, to grow with purpose, not just for profit, to listen more, to protect our culture, to lead with empathy, even when it's hard. That's not just a business lesson. It's a life lesson. There were many nights I couldn't sleep. I worried about our partners. I worried about customers. I worried about disappointing the people who believed in us. But I never let fear stop me. I used fear as fuel. Because when you fight for something bigger than yourself, you find strength you didn't know you had. Here's what I want you to remember. Every dream comes with difficulty. Every mission comes with moments of doubt. Every success story has a chapter of struggle. So if you're going through a hard time, keep going. Customer first, the philosophy of Starbucks. At the heart of Starbucks was one simple idea: put the customer first. Always. This wasn't just a slogan or a poster on the wall. It was our philosophy, our way of thinking, our culture. Because when you truly care about your customer cares back. In most companies, customers are seen as numbers, sales, profits, traffic. But to us, customers were people. People with names, with stories, with good days and bad days. And every time someone walked through our doors, we saw an opportunity, not just to sell a drink, but to make a difference in their day. Our goal was simple: create a place where people feel better when they leave than when they came in. That's it. If we did that, everything else would follow: sales, growth, loyalty, reputation. But it started with human care. We trained our partners to greet customers with eye contact and a smile. Remember regulars by name and by order. Ask real questions. How's your day? Big plans this weekend? Listen when someone needed to talk. Say thank you like they meant it. These weren't rules. They were values. Customers don't come back because your coffee is the hottest or the fastest. They come back because of how you make them feel. Respected, seen, welcome. That's what builds loyalty. We also listened to customers in other ways. We asked for feedback. We responded to complaints quickly. We created products based on customer suggestions. We offered personalized rewards. We made stores more comfortable, accessible, and safe. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being open. I remember one day, a customer wrote to us. He said he had been coming to the same Starbucks every morning after his wife died. He told us, "Your baristas were the only people who smiled at me. You gave me a reason to get out of bed." That letter brought tears to my eyes. And it reminded me, again, why this all matters. Business isn't just about products. It's about people. And if you take care of people, the business will take care of itself. That was our belief. That was our advantage. We also trained our teams to handle tough situations with grace. If a customer was upset, we didn't argue. We listened. If we made a mistake, we didn't hide. We apologized. If someone had a bad experience, we gave them a reason to give us another chance. And here's the surprising thing. Caring costs nothing, but it gives you everything. In a world where people are rushed, ignored, or treated like transactions, a little kindness goes a long way. That kindness became our signature. As Starbucks grew around the world, we kept asking ourselves, what does it mean to put the customer first in this culture? In this city? In this store? Because putting the customer first doesn't mean doing the same thing everywhere. It means doing the right thing for each place. That's why Starbucks in Tokyo feels different from Starbucks in New York. That's why we offer different drinks in India or Italy or Brazil. We don't just go global, we go local with care. We also made sure customers had a voice. We created online platforms for feedback. We launched community programs. We asked for input on new flavors, store design, and environmental choices. The message was clear. You're not just a customer. You're a partner in this journey. And that's what made Starbucks more than a coffee shop. It became a part of people's lives. A stop before work, a place to study, a table for conversation, a moment to breathe. We were proud of the drinks we served, but we were even more proud of the experiences we created. One cup at a time. One person at a time. One neighborhood at a time. That was our philosophy. That was our mission. That was our secret. A cup of empathy. What makes a great company? Is it the product? The marketing? The leadership? All of those things matter. But I believe the greatest strength of a company is something deeper. Empathy. The ability to understand and care about other people. To put yourself in their shoes. To feel what they feel. Empathy changes how you treat your employees. It changes how you serve your customers. It changes how you build your brand. At Starbucks, empathy was at the center of everything. I learned empathy the hard way, by watching my father suffer. He worked long hours for little money. He had no insurance, no support. When he got hurt, he was discarded, forgotten, and that stayed with me. No one should be treated like that, I told myself. So when I started leading people, I led with heart. We treated our employees like partners, not just workers. When someone needed help, we helped. When someone had ideas, we listened. When someone struggled, we supported them, not punished them. Because everyone is fighting battles we can't always see. We also looked at how we could help in our communities. We opened stores in neighborhoods that were often ignored. We created job training programs for people with fewer opportunities. We supported veterans, single parents, refugees, and more. Why? Because business isn't just about taking. It's about giving back. In one city, I met a young woman who told me, I didn't think I had a future. I was a high school dropout. No one would hire me. But then Starbucks gave me a job. And now, I have a path. That story meant more to me than any sales report ever could. Because when you invest in people, you create real value. Empathy also shaped how we treated our customers. Some were happy. Some were tired. Some were lonely. Some just needed a smile. We trained our partners to see beyond the order. If someone looked upset, we offered them a kind word. If someone made a mistake, we forgave. If someone was rude, we responded with calm. Why? Because you never know what someone is going through. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. Anyone can get angry. Anyone can shout. But it takes strength to choose kindness. As we grew around the world, we brought this value everywhere. In China, in Africa, in Europe, different cultures, different languages, but the same principle: care first. Listen first. Respect first. It worked everywhere. Because empathy is universal. We also learned that empathy means listening when things go wrong. There were times we made mistakes. Times when we weren't inclusive enough. Times when our stores didn't feel safe for everyone. When that happened, we didn't get defensive. We listened. We apologized. We learned. And we changed. One example. There was a situation in one of our U.S. stores where two black customers were treated unfairly. The incident made national news. It was painful, embarrassing, wrong, but we didn't ignore it. We closed 8,000 stores for one afternoon and gave bias training to over 175,000 employees. Some people said it was too much, but we believed it was the minimum we could do. Because empathy means taking responsibility, even when it's uncomfortable. We can't be perfect, but we can always be better. That's what empathy demands. Not guilt, not shame, just the commitment to grow. I often told our leaders, business is not only about how much money you make. It's about the values you live by. Empathy is not soft. Empathy is strong. Empathy creates loyalty. It inspires innovation. It builds communities. One cup of coffee, one kind word, one moment of patience. That's all it takes to make someone's day. And when you multiply that by millions of cups, millions of stores, millions of moments, you get a company that truly matters. So if you're starting something, a business, a project, a dream, I have a question for you. Is there room for empathy in your vision? If there is, your chances of success go way up. Because people remember how you treat them. And kindness never goes out of style. Leadership, culture, and legacy. What is a leader? Some people think a leader is the boss. The person who gives orders. The one with the title and the office. But I learned something different. Leadership is not about power. It's about responsibility. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the calmest, the clearest, and the most consistent. When I became the CEO of Starbucks, I knew I had a big job. Not just to grow the company, but to protect the culture. Culture is everything. You can have great products, smart people, strong marketing. But if the culture is weak, everything falls apart. So I made it my mission to build a culture of care. That meant listening before speaking. That meant being visible and available. That meant making decisions based not just on numbers, but on values. Every time we made a choice, I asked, does this help people grow? Does this build trust? Does this reflect who we are? Because culture is not what you write on the wall. It's what you do every day. I used to say, the best way to build a company is to build people. That became our philosophy. We didn't just offer jobs. We offered opportunity, a chance to learn, to grow, to lead. Baristas became managers. Managers became leaders. Some even went on to open their own businesses. That was the kind of success I was most proud of. We also built leadership from the bottom up. We asked our partners, what do you need? What do you dream about? How can we help you succeed? We trusted them with decisions. We gave them ownership. We shared our profits. Because leadership is not about control. It's about empowerment. And leadership isn't only about inside the company. It's about how you show up in the world. We led on social issues, sometimes before it was popular. We spoke up about racial justice, climate change, healthcare, and education. Why? Because business has a voice. And if we stay silent, we become part of the problem. Of course, not everyone agreed. Some customers were upset. Some shareholders were nervous. But I believed this deeply. Doing the right thing is always the right thing, even when it's hard. And I wanted Starbucks to be known not just for coffee, but for courage. Over time, I also thought more about legacy. What would I leave behind? Not just in numbers or stores or profits, but in impact. Did we make lives better? Did we give people dignity? Did we lead with kindness? That's the real test of leadership. I started sharing our journey more openly. I gave talks. I wrote books. I visited schools. Not to show off, but to say, if I can do this, a poor kid from the projects, maybe you can too. Because real leadership is multiplying others, not just promoting yourself. Today, Starbucks is led by new people. And that's a good thing. I always said, the mark of a strong leader is what happens when they leave. If the culture is strong, if the values stay alive, if the people feel inspired, then you've done your job. And I believe we did. But I'll always carry Starbucks in my heart. Not because of what it became, but because of why it was built. To show that business can be human, that leadership can be soft and strong, that culture can be kind and still win. So if you're building something, a team, a company, a dream, I ask you, what kind of leader do you want to be? What kind of culture are you creating every day? What will your legacy be? Because leadership is not a title. It's a choice you make in every interaction. And when you lead with heart, you lead people somewhere worth going. Final thoughts. You can build your own brand. So now you know my story. Not the polished version, not the headline, but the real journey, full of doubt, fear, failure, and hope. I didn't start with money. I didn't start with connections. I didn't even know what I was doing at first. But I had a vision. I had belief. And I had the courage to start. People ask me all the time, Howard, how did you build Starbucks? How did you go from poverty to a global brand? What's the secret? Here's my honest answer. There is no secret. There's only the work, the mission, the mindset. And now, it's your turn. Because this story isn't just about Starbucks. It's about you. You don't have to build a coffee empire. But you can build something that matters. A business, a project, a voice, a community, a dream. Whatever it is, you can build it. And you can build it with heart. Here are 7 lessons I want to leave you with. 1. Start where you are. You don't need the perfect plan. You don't need approval. You just need to begin. You can build from anywhere, even from the projects of Brooklyn. 2. Care more than others think is reasonable. Care about people. Care about quality. Care about the little things. Empathy is your superpower. 3. Lead with values, not ego. Anyone can demand attention, but real leaders earn trust by living what they believe. Know what you stand for, and let your actions prove it. 4. Don't chase money. Chase meaning. Money comes and goes. But purpose gives you strength when things get hard. And they will get hard. Meaning keeps you going. 5. Build people, not just systems. Your team is your greatest asset. Support them. Believe in them. Grow with them. When your people win, you win. 6. Stay close to your customer. Never forget who you serve. Listen, respond, adapt. Your customer is not a number. They are the reason you exist. 7. Never stop dreaming. No matter how far you go, there's always another level. Dream bigger, work harder, give more, and most importantly, enjoy the journey. Your brand is not your logo. It's not your colors or your website. Your brand is how you make people feel. If people trust you, if they respect you, if they feel something when they see your name, that's your brand. And it starts with who you are, every single day. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be lucky. You just have to be intentional. Wake up and ask yourself, how can I serve today? Who can I help? How can I make someone feel valued? Do that for long enough, and people will follow you, buy from you, support you, remember you. And that's how brands are built. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the most talented. But I never gave up. I worked hard. I stayed true. I believed. And if I can do it, you can too. So go. Start small. Start scared. Start now. But start. Because you never know. The dream that's in your heart today might be the next brand the world will love tomorrow. Epilogue. Your story starts now. You've just listened to the story of a boy from the projects who had no money, no power, and no reason to believe it was possible. But he believed anyway. And today, you're not just hearing that story, you're holding the start of your own. My journey is not perfect. I've made mistakes. I've faced doubt. I've felt fear. But I always returned to one thing. The belief that one person can make a difference. And that person might be you. You don't have to start big. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to begin with heart. Because brands come and go. Trends rise and fall. But character, kindness, and purpose, they last forever. I hope you walk away from this story with more than inspiration. I hope you walk away with action. With the idea that you can build something. That you can lead with courage. That you can treat people with dignity. That your life, just like mine, can become a gift to others. And if no one has told you this yet, let me be the first. You have what it takes. You can start today. You don't need permission. Just take the first step. One day, your story could be the one that inspires millions. And if you ever doubt yourself, if you ever feel small, lost, or unimportant, remember this. So did I. But look what happened when I decided to believe. So believe in yourself. The world needs what only you can build. Final words. Thank you for listening. Thank you for dreaming. Thank you for showing up. This world belongs to the builders, the dreamers, the doers. And now, it belongs to you. So grab your vision, pour yourself a cup of courage, and go change the world. One step, one customer, one moment at a time. Liked this story? Then don't forget to follow and subscribe for more powerful stories just like this one. Every week, we bring you inspiring lessons, real-life success stories, and English listening practice to keep you learning and growing. This is Learn Smarter, where motivation meets language. Subscribe now, and start building your own legacy, one step at a time.